And I'm really thinking about the consumer every single day and ultimately how they're living. I think that that's the most important thing. And, but again, if you don't try, then you'll never know. Recognizing that, you know, even during times like, you know, the year that 2020 has been, what are the things that you're ultimately doing right? And how do you ultimately expand on those things?
All right, so
you want to grab a hint over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Got you one.
Yeah, you guys want to get on there and get your subscription to Hint. And it's just been so fun to see your growth over the, I mean, you were already growing, but here, and especially for those of you that saw Kara last time with your business, and you've stayed the course. You've stayed the course, and, you know, all kinds of peaks and valleys and so forth. I love your creativity. I love that you are willing to do things that others haven't done, and I think that it's so easy to get into the trap of trying to follow what other people are doing and mirror it, and instead of trusting, you know, that your own imagination. And the subscription service, nobody was doing that. Super Bowl commercial, which was a big leap for your company. Usually it's going to be the Budweiser or the Coca-Cola, right? How do you come up with the creative ideas? How do you implement the brainstorming? Do you sit with your team? Do you have thinking days? Like, where does this come from you?
Yeah, I think every day I wake up and I think like the customer. I mean, I think that is just, I literally like, I live in Marin County and I go out on my hikes every day, every morning at 5:30, and that's where I start. And I'm really thinking about the consumer every single day and ultimately how they're living. I think that that's the most important thing. And, you know, the Super Bowl situation was, you know, I think whenever you start a business, I mean, it sort of was the running joke for advertising, you know, for years, like one day we'll do a Super Bowl commercial. And actually that was an amazing, I'm probably still blushing from the story because that was an amazing story. And really the backstory of it is even more amazing because that all came together in like 3 weeks. It was insane how, and it was super last minute. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it was, it's a pie eating contest. You can see it on YouTube. It was hysterical, but we had the creative. But a friend, ages ago, I used to work at CNN, and a friend who used to work with me at CNN, I had recently run into her at a conference, and she's now at NBC, and I happened to text her, and I said, I don't even know what network the Super Bowl is on, but it'd be great to get in contact with them. I was just curious, is there any inventory left? And so she introduced me to a friend of hers at Fox Sports, and I reached out to him, and he said, no, Super Bowl is all sold out. And he said, but, you know, there's like local stuff that is available because all of the major markets have a little bit of inventory available. And so, I don't know, it was like on a Sunday, he was giving me this guy to text, and I texted him, I'm like, hey, like what markets are available? And then the 49ers got into the Super Bowl, and so I was like, okay, I'm in the Bay Area, this could be fun, I wonder if San Francisco's open. And then I found out that in every major market, there was a little bit of inventory available. And so what I remembered about my journey along the way, and again, it's another piece that I talk about in the book, is like you never know like why you're picking up on information. And now I'm such a huge believer that you end up picking up on information that's ultimately going to help you later. This is an example of this where I knew that a Super Bowl ad had to go through, they call it traffic, and had to get approved. And so we let the clock run out on this advertising for the local ads. And 2 days before the Super Bowl ad was due, we started putting bids on inventory. And so they had inventory available. And so I was reminding the salespeople on the other side, I said, okay, well, you're gonna have like empty inventory. Is your boss gonna be happy about this? And joking about it, but somewhat serious. And so the craziest story is that we had 9 of the major markets for less than $1 million. And a national Super Bowl ad this year was $5 million. We had 80% of the country for less than $1 million. And that to me was like, you know, who does that, right? But actually the bigger thing that I, again, didn't expect, like there were things that I didn't expect out of that. It was great. I felt great. You know, we had great ad. Everything was, you know, customers were excited. The employees being at Super Bowl parties throughout the US and seeing that their brand that they had been working so hard for was now running a Super Bowl ad and had better placement than the Pepsi ad. Like we ran like 15 seconds before the halftime show. Like it just could not have been better. Like just the momentum and just the excitement, and my phone was just blowing up from, you know, watching the team and how excited they were.
Leap.
Yeah, and again, like taking that leap, but also building this, you know, underdog, right? Like they always thought of themselves as the underdog, but now the underdog is flying, right? Now the underdog is showing up, and, you know, there were many, you know, dances that were going on. I mean, people were so excited, and that extended, you know, into 2020. I think people just really felt, you know, strong.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love that. People didn't expect it, but I also love the fact that for you, the creativity is thinking about your customer and what the customer wants and needs.
Yeah, and trying too. Like I didn't know. I had no idea going in whether or not we'd be able to get what we got for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't try, then you'll never know, right? No one had done what we did for the Super Bowl. No one had done 80% of the country for a fifth of what a Super Bowl ad. And I don't know that they'll be able to do it ever again. Like we really, you know, gamed the Super Bowl. And I think there's plenty of people that are not happy about that on sort of the, you know, on the selling inventory side of the world. But again, if you don't try and you don't find these inventory possibilities out there, then you won't get.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't ask, right? If you don't ask.
Totally.
And your why, from the time that you and I spoke, before the first time that you spoke, you have been focused on changing the state of people's health. And when I read articles about you and different things that you're doing, you always are on point with your mission and your vision. And, you know, giving people a better option than the crap that's out there right now. How do you keep and build upon, because we're going to talk about vision today and building your strategic vision, and I think sometimes business owners are like, I don't have time for that. I need to work on the strategy. Mm-hmm. But that's so important because it's like your North Star. But as you grow and all of these different things happen, like the Starbucks, how do you stay the course with the vision and the mission, and when you bring in investors and everything, that you don't lose that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to really putting stakes in the ground around your mission and sticking to that mission, right, along the way. So I think that's part of it. But then I think that the other piece is really, I think it's also recognizing that, you know, even during times like, you know, the year that 2020 has been, what are the things that you're ultimately doing right? And how do you ultimately expand on those things? And so I think so many leaders in all different industries, the best leaders are the ones that can go back to the early days, right? So one thing that I did, at the beginning of COVID, so again, we're an essential product. We're sending teams of people into stores to ultimately stock shelves. I had, a few salespeople from my team who know me really well and called and said, hey, you're sending us into stores. Like, are you sending us in to die? I mean, like literally those were the questions that they know me well enough and were calling me on it. And at that moment, I, put on my Hint uniform and my sweatpants and my Hint shirt, and I went back to what I was doing when I started this company, which was I took on a route in Marin County. So I was the salesperson, and I was going into stores, and I was understanding for my team things that, I probably, if I wouldn't have been able to get scrappy and know how to do that, I, was educating my team in March to go into stores before 7 o'clock in the morning and after 7 o'clock at night, because those were the times where there were less people in the store. We had, thankfully, because of the fires up in Northern California, we had a bunch of N95 masks that we said to people like, look, these, like, use them sparingly, but if you guys need N95 masks, if you're going into stores, like, here they are. Like, we had those in people's hands immediately. We were thinking not just like the consumer during this process, but also about our employees' concerns. And I think as a leader, the number of people who came back to me and said, you told us that you're working. We didn't have any layoffs during this process. I mean, we said to people, you're going into stores and you're doing the work, but I'm here with you and I'm out there in the stores. And if I think it's too scary and I think that we're not going to be able to do this, then, I'll let you know. But I think being a leader and growing a team and them seeing that you're able to do what they do every single day, they do it way better than I do, right? Like, but I think being able to sort of, I had started this direct-to-consumer business, and I can still go in and get into Facebook algorithms when I need to, and I can still get in and reach out to Sheryl Sandberg only once a year. I tell my team and say, like, why are you kicking my ads out? Like that. I can be a resource for them, but I'm also not a leader that doesn't, really like get dirty, right? And ultimately, I think that is so important. Mm-hmm.
Not that only respect that the different aspects of your business, but without getting in their way.
Yeah,
either.
without getting in their way. And I think like that's such an important piece of sort of leading it and sort of being able to ultimately scale. Because if you've got a team that ultimately, doesn't sit here and say, oh, they're clueless, they don't really understand how to do email marketing, they don't really understand how to do, Facebook, they don't really, know how to go into Target. My favorite Target story during COVID happened in the first week when I'm stocking the shelves, and this guy was very defensive about, he didn't see his typical sales guy from Hint coming in there, and he said, what do you do for Hint? And I said, I've been here forever. And he said, well, where's my guy? And I said, oh, he's here. I'm just helping him out. There's a lot of stores. And he said, what do you normally do? And I said, oh, I do a little bit of everything. And finally it was just annoying. And, I said, I'm the founder of the company. And he said, get out of here. You're the founder of the company and you're in here like pulling cases out of the back room. And I'm like, yeah, look at that, and he's like, that's awesome. He was like, will you autograph a bottle for me? And then he was like, just because you're in here right now, he was like, we're going to give you this extra space in the store. And I'm not supposed to do that, but he was like, I just think it's great that you're in here and you're showing up, and he's wanted to take pictures with me, and now my sales guy is like, you got to keep coming in, like all my accounts, you're the best salesperson in all my accounts. I gotta, like, it's way better when you just go in there and I don't know what you do, but the fact that you're like in there and you're showing up like that, like, never forget the scrappiness of understanding what your team is going through every day. And I learned a ton too about, I hadn't been in there for the last couple of years just because we're scaling and I'm doing lots of other things, but I'm not going away, right? Like, I won't be in there every single day like I've been in, but I will definitely not lose touch with what's going on. And again, like, I think there's so many leaders that, I think a lot of you guys probably know this, but getting on your customer service calls, getting on really understanding, even if you've got teams of people that are doing it. I particularly dislike having large meetings on a regular basis. Like, I just, to me, I feel like sometimes people are meeting for the sake of meeting.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly like sharing with my team, like, what is the purpose of meeting? And I learned this from Jeff Bezos, actually has written about this. Anyone who's worked at Amazon, or if you know any people that have worked there, will share this with you, that you actually have to determine exactly what your purpose of your meeting is. And like, Jeff Bezos will not show up in a meeting unless you basically do a brief saying, what are we going to accomplish in this meeting? Otherwise, like, there should be another reason for having that meeting.
I love that. I love that. And we have one of our speakers that are coming in the event, Cameron Harold, wrote a book called Meetings Suck. So,
I agree. I love
it. If you do them right, they can be powerful. But yeah, you don't want to waste your time. Well, we just have a few more minutes, but I want to talk a little bit because you have a book coming out.
I do.
And we're really excited, and I want you all to run out and grab that book. When's it coming out?
So it's in pre-sale right now, and you can get it at Undaunted the Book or karagoldin.com. Or on Amazon as well. And basically, I was writing for the last 4 years. I touched on this a bit in my talk around, this concept of being fearless, on being, having, like, people would accuse me of not having doubts along the way. And I really started thinking about how, if you can ultimately just move forward, even if you have those doubts, even if you have those fears, and I wanted to write the story because I believed that by sharing my story, and I fully believe that if I can do this, anyone can do this. You need to figure out exactly what you fear and what you want to do. And, I think that some of the bigger stories in there are not even related to business. I have a story in there about hiking the Grand Canyon. I'm terrified of heights. I went out there thinking, I'm going to hike the Grand Canyon because I'm terrified of hikes. And you'll have to read it to really get the full breadth of it. But what I learned about myself as an entrepreneur, and it was just amazing. And when I came out of my 22-mile hike and one day exhausted, my husband said to me, how was it? And I was smiling. Not because I had finished, but because I realized so many things about how I make decisions on critical decisions, and decisions that I could have lost my life in hiking the Grand Canyon at points, but I was like, I came out just like, wow, it's amazing. So again, I'm a big believer too, in that you go and try things that are really hard for you and really, really challenge you, and there will be points along the way where you've got to wake up and recognize that these are things that are really, really, helping you to become a better leader, become a better entrepreneur. Like, that is really the message in this book.
I mean, in the middle of what we have going on, and you guys are here today,
100%.
Even if it's uncomfortable, even if you have other things to do, this is where the growth happens, is hearing things like this. And I just remember, and I've said this to you before, and it just has always stuck with me, is that when we first talked, you said, Allison, I thought I was building $1 billion company, but I realize I'm building a $2 billion company. All right. And it was a knowingness. It's stating it. You don't know how you're going to get there. You don't know the steps that you're going to take. But you're like, I am putting my stake in the ground. Like,
Totally.
this is going to happen. And you'll come back in 3 years and you'll be like just about there. So it just is, you have to own it. And it's not always going to be comfortable. It's not always going to be convenient.
And you don't necessarily know all the pieces on getting there either. And that's okay. And I think that is such an important piece of it as well.
Yeah. And so the book is coming out. Well, you can buy it now. You can get on Amazon right now and grab yourself a copy. And let's help her get this to be a #1 best-selling book, Undaunted. And I cannot wait to get
Undaunted, Overcoming Doubts and Doubters.
Doubts and Doubters. And what's an example of a doubt and doubter you overcame?
Well, I think the Starbucks story is probably one of, the bigger ones. But, also, I think that the key thing in never allowing those doubts to ever get so big, right? How many times have you said, oh, I can't do that, like that's impossible? And I always say you can find people. If you're in your doubting party, right? Like you're having a doubt party where you're like, I can't do that, like that's impossible. Why would anybody pick me? Why would I be able to do that? Your best friends will join your party and say, yeah, you're right. Like, that's really hard. Like, how many people have ever been through that, right? Your parents, your family, they're like, yeah, don't do that, right? And instead of getting that far along the way where you create the largest doubt and doubters party along the way, just go try, right? And see what will happen along the way. Because if you get so far where you think like, oh, I can't get that job, or I can't build this business to this. Instead, you stop yourself and then you just go try and you go see what happens. And maybe you'll figure out that the way that I can ultimately scale this business is to go start a direct-to-consumer business in the case of, the beverage industry, right? Don't listen to all these people around you that are telling you that you can't do it. You're a tech executive that has 4 kids and you live in Marin County where no beverage business has ever, scaled before. And you can listen to those people, just don't absorb it, right? Because just because they didn't do it, or just because they didn't think of it, or just because they don't have the courage to ultimately go on and the know-how and the scrappiness, that is ultimately what this book is really about.
Yeah, those people in one ear and out the other, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of nod, And I think that's a perfect point for us to end on here. Just because, if anything, remembering that is that you just have to cut off that noise and stay on your path, because another door is going to open. Get support. Don't do it on your own, and that's why you all are here.
I should mention too, I just saw in the comments over there. So if you go to karagoldin.com, it's KaraGoldin, it's a free case of hint water and with the book order. So it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's
free case of hint water and the book. Is that insane?
I know, right?
That's quite generous.
It is. It's awesome.
Yeah,
so.
I love it. Well, let's give Kara a hand.
Thank you so
much. So great.
Thank you.
So